Tony Blair said that radical Islam poses the biggest threat to global security today. It is similar to revolutionary communism, he said, in that people believe whatever is done in the name of the cause is justified, and they'd use chemical, biological or nuclear weapons if they could. He denied that his own policies had been so militaristic that they helped the radical Islamists gain support. Asked about the argument that the Chechens, Kashmiris, Palestinians, Iraqis and Afghans are resisting foreign occupation, he said Western policies are designed to confront radical Islamists because they're regressive, wicked and backward-looking. Al-Qaeda is not resisting foreign occupation in Iraq, he said. It's trying to destabilise the elected Iraqi government. Mr. Blair said he agonises over how to respond to radical Islam and still has doubts that he's right. These are really difficult issues, he said, but the extremism is so deep, the radicals have to know they're facing a stronger will than theirs. Mr. Blair also spoke about Iran, saying they need to understand they cannot have nuclear weapons, and, as he put it, we will stop them. And I've been speaking to Tony Blair, former British Prime Minister, of course, here in London, and first of all began with this question: how great does he believe is the threat from radical Islam?
It was really, for me, very simple. 3,000 people killed in the name of religious ideology on the streets of New York in one day. The important point always, for me, was if they could have killed 30,000 or 300,000, they would have. And therefore, I felt from that moment, you really had to pivot the whole of your foreign policy to deal with a quite new and different security threat. I still think there is the most enormous threat from the combination of this radical extreme movement and the fact that, if they could, they would use nuclear, chemical or biological weapons. I think they would if they could. And I think you can't take a risk with that happening because the consequences are so devastating that you must avoid them at all costs.
Yeah, but your policy has devastating consequences in Somalia, in Yemen, in Western Pakistan, where Al-Qaeda have gained strength from your policies and are now present in these countries.
Why have they gained strength from our policy?
Well, because they you know the arguments they use, that there is a challenge from the West, it must be tackled, we must go on the offensive, we must attack these...
Yeah, but the way to defeat this argument is not to concede to it, it's to confront it, because it's nonsense. What these people are doing in Yemen or Somalia when they're killing innocent people, we're not provoking them to do it, we've got to stop them. When we say we're in favour of giving you a democratic process and billions of dollars worth of money, and the people in those countries decide their future, and that's what we're in favour of, that we're provoking them to go and kill the first 20 people they see in a street market. Their narrative is wrong, it's regressive, it's reactionary. A few weeks back, the Taliban stoned to death a couple in Afghanistan because they're in love.
Yeah, but the point is, I don't think anybody... You see, that argument is flawed, isn't it? Because you use that argument to suggest there should be moral outrage at the Taliban, which, of course, everyone agrees with. I mean, nobody in the West is going to say you should stone people for having an affair. So, of course, it's just a question of how you tackle it. So to express the moral outrage is not really part of the argument. It's a question of how best to deal with it.
Well, it is how best to deal with it, but the moral outrage is important because it indicates the nature of the people we're dealing with. And so when you say the Western policies have made them stronger in the Yemen and Somalia and so on, I just don't agree with that. The Western policies are policies designed, or at least they should be designed, to confront that because it's wrong, because it's regressive and wicked and backward-looking.
Iran, how big a threat is it, in your view?
Big. Big because it is important that they do not acquire nuclear weapons capability, and big because at the moment they export extremism around the region. And, you know, that's there. And one of the things that I see being in the Middle East so much is that influence there. And it's an influence that is specifically designed to destabilize. And in respect to the Palestinians, by the way, it is an interference with both Palestinian politics and what the Palestinians want to achieve.
The biggest threat in the world today in international security?
Well, the biggest threat in international security is this broader radicalized movement, because I think it is rather similar to revolutionary communism. I think it is loosely a global ideological movement, but Iran is a state sponsor of it.
Do you think that there should be a preemptive strike on Iran to prevent it getting a nuclear weapon?
I don't actually think this is a question of preemption or not. I think that we need to give a a message to Iran that is very clear, that they cannot have nuclear weapons capability and that we will stop them. Now, I am not advocating military action. I simply say you cannot take any option off the table. Let us hope that sanctions and the diplomatic means work, but they've got to get that message, because the single biggest danger in this is that we somehow don't give them a clear enough message and they think we can do this and get away with it.
Do you think Pakistan should be disarmed?
There's no question of us doing that. There's no desire or will to do that. There is a desire, however, for Pakistan to continue to evolve into the type of modern country people want to see it.
Yeah, but I mean, there is obviously a radical Islamist threat in Pakistan.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's unclear to me why you're singling out Iran.
I'm singling out Iran because, precisely because there is this radical extremism, and in this case in charge of a government, is a very good reason for not allowing them to have a nuclear weapon.
Now, after you left office, within 12 months, you had worked with the Kuwaiti government, over $1 billion. You had worked with an oil company. Do you think there is legitimate interest in whether former ministers are taking money from foreign governments quite so soon after leaving office?
You can have a perfectly legitimate inquiry about it, but here's the thing that I...
Which they try to keep secret, by the way, the Kuwaitis.
Well, actually, it's been absolutely public since I've been out there doing work, and they're absolutely openly. But again, which is to do with a whole lot of things to do with how they deliver a vision for their country for the future. Look, I'd be very happy to be back in public service. You know, when the job for the European Parliament came up at the end of last year, I would have taken that job. I would have been happy carrying on as Prime Minister. But if I'm not in public service, I want... You know, I've come out of office reasonably young. I've got these two major foundations, one to do with interfaith, another to do with Africa and governance. I'm building them into major foundations now, and I will pursue, if you like, the objectives that motivate me in a different way. But, you know, what gets me up in the morning is not to do with money.
Public service job. UN?
Well, it's not open to a member of the, to someone from the P5, actually, I think.
The Secretary General's job?
Yeah.
Would no UN agency be of interest?
I don't rule anything out, but it's, probably, it would have to be something that was of interest. But I don't think it's likely in the UN sphere. I mean, what did come up, as I say, was the idea of doing the European presidency, which I would have done, and I would have enjoyed doing, but it didn't happen. And I don't rule out going back into public service at some point.
Give us a clue. What are you thinking of?
I'm not thinking of anything, actually. I really am not. I mean, I don't know of anything, and I'm not planning on anything. I'm simply stating the fact that, for me, I remain basically a public service guy. Now, I enjoy what I do now, and I love actually doing the business stuff, but I suppose in the end, it's what motivates you.
And that was former British Prime Minister Tony Blair there.